Sports fans, welcome to another exciting week of Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist Mac Engel. The beautiful gentleman on the other side of your screen is, checks notes, Nick Harris. Nick, our fearless producer, Miss Candy Bolden, has sent out an edict, which is you two need to be done with this quick. So we're going to try to wrap this up in about 30 seconds. Or we could do the fun thing and just drag it out for a couple of hours and see what she does. Which way are you leaning?
Maybe somewhere in the middle. The middle ground is always the answer. It's always the answer.
Oh, very nice, Candy. I like how you did that. Just wrap it up. Nick, I noticed you are ridiculously dressed in a hoodie. Dude, it's October 9th and it's 90 degrees outside.
There's a reason. It's the
what?
Dunkin' DeSoto week.
Okay. That's the game. That's the game of the week. I know we got Texas OU on Saturday at the Cotton Bowl, which we'll talk about here shortly. That is the biggest game in the state in the regular season. I know the game last week in Alito was a big deal, and they had their long district winning streak briefly threatened before they kept it up. I can't think of a game any bigger in high school football in this state than that one right there.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. They said at DeSoto that they had 150 media requests this week. That's only 50 less than Ohio State, Oregon up in Eugene this weekend. So,
good little factoid.
Yeah. If you want
all right,
how big this one is.
That's awesome. I'm glad 150 media requests for a high school football game. That's crazy. Okay, let's get into it. Here on Window Nation's Cowboys Overtime. Great news, Nick. You were there in Pittsburgh. A rain-delayed Cowboys win over the Steelers. I'm here to declare it's all fixed. The Cowboys come back and overcome themselves and the Steelers to win on a very exciting last-minute drive led by Dak Prescott to beat the Steelers 20-17. I know you've watched this team for a long time. You've covered this team for a while. I can't think of, given the circumstances going into that game, of a more impressive regular season win in the Mike McCarthy era more than that one. Can you think of one quite as impressive as that?
Oh man, that's tough to think of right off the top of my head. But I would say the Bengals win in week 2 whenever Cooper Rush didn't step in and start right after that Tampa Bay disgusting loss, and then you lose Dak Prescott too. I would have to call that one more impressive, and I'm sure there's a couple others I could think. But I understand where you're going with that, because you look at where kind of this season was, and I had said before the Giants game that they're at kind of a fork in the road. Little did I know that I wouldn't really know the direction of that fork until after the Steelers game, but I think they're heading in the right direction. And the overwhelming feeling that I got coming out of the locker room after that win was this was really needed for the mentality and kind of the repertoire of that group, just because they go into Pittsburgh. They not only get Mike McCarthy a hometown win, but they play against a physical team. They stop the run against a team that runs the ball more than anyone in the NFL. And while the offense, it was up and down, costly turnovers from Dak Prescott, they were productive when you look at the total yardage category. They just need to capitalize in the red zone. I mean, we're starting to look at this as a similar problem faced last season. But the bright side is you have 3 wins here, and your opportunity to go to 4-2 before the bye week, that was not what we were expecting 2 weeks ago. I'll say that.
No, and I think we need to get into a little bit of the fact that they did it without virtually anybody that we knew on defense. Tank Lawrence is out. His replacement, Marshawn Nealon, suffers an injury that knocks him out of the game in the first quarter. Micah Parsons can't play. I mean, it was, and this was against, now I realize Steelers quarterback Justin Fields is not, Patrick Mahomes, but that was an offense that had run the ball well every game so far in the regular season. There was nothing defensively that gave us any indication that against a really good offense, I'm not talking about a Giants offense, against a good offense, that the Cowboys were going to do what they did on Sunday night. Of the performances out of that, what are the ones that you took away with, say, I'll be damned, they looked really good. Like, there's something there.
I would have to start with the end group, and not necessarily that there's something there. Well, maybe there's life there. There's
Yeah.
oxygen there on the ends. I mean, you lose your top four pass rushers and Micah Parsons, and Marcus Lawrence, Sam Williams before the season even got going. Then you lose Marshawn Nealon on the fourth play of the game. So you're relying on Chauncey Golston, who's mostly played inside during his career. He's been bounced out outside more as like a wide end guy. And then you also factor in Tyler Sweet. He was an undrafted guy in 2023. Then Carl Lawson, who was being elevated from the practice squad. I mean, you were really trying to string it together. These guys played well. And granted, they were going up against the Steelers' offensive line that is dealing with just as many issues when it comes to injuries and things of that nature. So whenever you look at maybe the comparison there, maybe there's not a ton of confidence that you can take from it. But I think when you look at those guys, they had a good performance. They can carry it into this week. It was really impressive. But if there's anything as far as something, I look at somebody and say there's something here, I look at Jalen Tolbert. I look at the performance that he had in the presence of Brandon Cooks, who's going to be out for 4 to 5 weeks with this knee infection that he developed after a knee injection after New York. He stepped up in a big way. He had an awesome night. He had a game-winning touchdown on fourth down when they needed it. It was just really cool to see Tolbert's progression over the course of his career to get to that moment. You could definitely tell that was the culmination of a lot of ups and downs that he's faced early in his 3-year career. So I think he's the guy that they can comfortably turn to as the second wide receiver option going forward in Brandon Cook's absence.
Okay, so one of the bigger issues for this team offensively and overall was obviously a running game that really hadn't shown very much. There was a little bit of a spurt in the week 1 win at Cleveland, but other than that, no one had really done anything. Now, I had slightly been beating the drum a little bit for Rico Dowdle, you as well, just because he was a little bit younger, and I thought if anybody could do anything, it was this guy. And against Pittsburgh, he played by far and away his best game of his career, the most important performance of a Cowboys running back this season, which says nothing, but he was good. He was legitimately good. And this was behind an offensive line that was a little banged up, but played really well, even though starting tackle Tyler Guyton was out for a decent amount of the game with an injury. We'll get to that in a second. T.J. Bass comes in at guard. Tyler Smith goes to tackle. Might be able to make a case that Tyler Smith, the tackle right now, is better than Tyler Guyton, although the Guyton thing is a long game. Nonetheless, Rico Dowdle comes in. He does really, really well. He's a threat. He catches a fourth quarter touchdown pass. That was a heck of a catch. And then he is a running game threat throughout the entire duration. Should we fall for it?
Yeah, I need to see it more. I just need to see the consistency. And Mike McCarthy, he talked about throughout this slow start for the running game, he said, we have to get the attempts up. We need to get these guys carries. In this game, that finally happened. He had a career high in carries at 20. And the yards per carry were not really that different from what he's produced up to this point in the season. It was only at 4.4 yards per pop. I say only, but that's a productive day. It's why he was able to get to 87 yards. That was another career high. I think all in all, it is a positive performance that you can take away. But can Rico Dowdle be that guy that when they need a big play, they can hand it to 23 and expect him to break off a 20, 30-yard run? That is what we haven't seen. We didn't see that last year from Tony Pollard. It's been a long time since we have seen a Cowboys running back be able to have that big play type of ability. Still, even after this great game, the longest carry that he's had all season is 13 yards. So there's got to be some sort of big play ability that you can find in Rico Dowdle. I mean, granted, he did have the 22-yard reception, which I think was an awesome play. It's one of the more high IQ plays that we saw in the entire game on Sunday night. He did not run his route because his guy fell, so he broke for the end zone, and then he was able to connect with Dak. Dak was on the same page, and they were able to connect on that touchdown. That was really huge to get them back in the lead of that game. So is there confidence with Rico Dowdle right now? Absolutely. I just need to see it more before I can say that it's fixed or we're falling for it.
We really haven't seen that kind of pop that you're talking about that even Dowdle in that performance didn't give. And that's not an indictment on him yet. It's not. But there's the one guy that used to do it, and it's clearly obvious he can't anymore, and that's Ezekiel Elliott. Now, I was not a fan of this signing at any point. I thought it was a bad idea, not because Zeke is a bad guy or because he's a bad pro. It's because he's 29 and he's got a lot of miles on his legs, a lot. And it is apparent to me that repeatedly now in the situations that the Cowboys said why they signed him short yardage, goal to go, 4th and 1, 3rd and 2. He's not on the field for any of those. And I don't know why he's on this team anymore. They're going to keep him on, but at any point, if they're not going to give him that chance, Nick, why is he here?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Mac. And we were able to catch up with him in the locker room today, and he has a little bit of the same concerns and the same questions. He's talked to the coaching staff this week about his role and just asking, hey, what am I doing here? And I don't think that answer, really anybody knows that right now. I will slightly disagree with you in one sense, though, saying that you didn't love the signing when it first happened. I didn't necessarily love the signing, but I thought there was something you could get out of it. I mean, it was a cheap deal. You were already throwing some dead cap money his way anyway, so you may as well bring him back on a cheap deal to allocate all the running back funds into one person, I guess. But at the end of the day, he is still a short yardage guy. He's a guy that can pass protect on 2nd and 3rd and long, and he's a reliable leader in that offensive locker room. And that's a guy that Dak has always appreciated during his career. So when you look at it on paper, you're saying, okay, hey, for that price, we can work with that. But you got to get an RB1 to be able to contribute in front of him and let Zeke kind of be that powerful change of pace type guy. We haven't seen that. And then also you look at last season, he had over 50 receptions for the Patriots last year, especially down the stretch. They relied a lot on him in the receiving game. And now you look up 5 games into the season, 6 receptions for 36 yards. So it doesn't even look like there's an intention to try to use him in the same ways that he found success with New England last year. Even though Jerry said that he loved a lot of the things he saw in New England last year, we haven't seen any of those things, and there hasn't been.
Nick, I don't think Jerry watched any of it last year. I think he watched one. No, I do. I say that, and I'm not. That's a criticism. I think it's BS. I think he watched the one game here against the Cowboys last season against New England. They were terrible. He had nothing. The team was awful. The offense was completely ineffective. I think Jerry said whatever he wanted to say. Like, yeah, let's bring him back for a lot of the good reasons that you mentioned. But I think what's becoming evident is that early on, and that's when patterns of a game are pretty much dictated. They're white flagging him, and they're just forgetting about him completely. Let's go to one more quick thing before we go to a break. Going into that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, everybody and their brother was hurt, including up to you. I had read someplace that you had a sprained ankle and you were 50-50. Admirable effort. Can you give me some injury updates heading into the game on Sunday against Detroit?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like Micah Parsons is going to be ready to go until after the bye week. They're going to try to rehab him and get him ready to go for San Francisco. That's still kind of an iffy situation. We'll check back in with that whenever they get back in the building after the bye. And then looking at Deron Bland, good news. It looks like he might be ready to go on Sunday against the Lions. I'm hearing about 25 to 30 snaps is what the expectation will be for him. And if that's the case, then they can really do some things against that a really powerful Lions offensive group. They have a lot of skill guys. They want to have Deron Bland on the field to be able to account for those guys. Eric Kendricks has missed practice back-to-back days with a calf and a shoulder injury. Definitely something to keep an eye on, because whenever he went down in Cleveland, he had a dehydration moment where he needed an IV. He came off the field. He's the green dot for the defense. So he makes all the calls. He takes the call from the sideline. Whenever he stepped out, it was Nick Vigil that came onto the field in his place. Well, Nick Vigil has also missed practice back-to-back days. So if both of those guys cannot go, who's going to call the defense? That is something to really keep an eye on. It'll be me from the press box. It'll be me, you, or Lawrence. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
But all in all, they're going to have to figure out who's going to be able to call the defense in the game on Sunday. So that'll be something to certainly keep an eye on. And then Trayvon Diggs, he missed practice today with an illness, so something to keep an eye on as well.
What about Tyler Guyton?
Yeah, Tyler Guyton, he's been a full participant. Looks like he's going to be ready to go with full force on Sunday.
Okay, we got that and Texas OU to talk about after this message from our great friends at Window Nation.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no interest payments for 60 months, 5 full years. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Thank you very much, Window Nation. Back here on StarTelegram.com's Cowboys Overtime. I'm Mac Engel. He's Nick Harris. All right, let's get into it. Big game on Sunday. Well, they're all big. Another homecoming for the great Dan Campbell, the pride of Glen Rose, Texas.
Yes,
the man
sir.
his friends grew up calling Boone, who would eventually go on to play at Texas A&M before a long career in the NFL that included a stint with Bill Parcells' Dallas Cowboys, has the Lions at 3-1. This is after a season where they reached the NFC Championship game in San Francisco and totally should have won, by the way. We don't need to get into that. Here's the shocker. Well, it shouldn't be a shocker. It's still visually hard to get over this one. Detroit is a 3-point favorite on the road against the Cowboys. Game is Sunday afternoon at 3:30 in Arlington, where the Cowboys are 0-2. Cowboys are a road warrior team, baby. 3-0 on the road. Can't win at home. We saw what was probably the most entertaining game of the season for the Cowboys last year here between these two teams. Had some amazing plays, some crazy calls. Dan Campbell being Dan Campbell, just going for it and going for it. One of the more confusing offensive lineman eligible plays that we've ever seen. There's no way this game is going to reach that level of stupid, crazy fun that game hit last season. But I'm of the mind to tell you, I don't see Dallas winning this game. I think Detroit's legit again. Do you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I look at the running game that Detroit has, that 1-2 punch, and granted, the Dallas defense has. I think I'm falling for it in that sense, in the sense that I think the run defense might be fixed a little bit. I see a lot more intention from the defensive front, even these guys that are having to play in for injured starters. I see better play up front. Mozzie Smith has had better play up front, Osa Odighizuwa, and it's allowing the linebackers to play a little bit more free. But I think this rushing attack is different. I think this is the best 1-2 punch in the NFL, in my opinion. You have a guy in Jahmyr Gibbs who can be that big play guy. He can be the outside zone. And then you have David Montgomery, who can be a back ram, but also discount he can do in the receiving game too. And they can both pass protect. I mean, this is a really difficult backfield to defend. And then you throw that out of the equation. They have one of the best tight ends in the game in Sam Laporta. They have one of the best receivers in the game in Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jamison Williams is finally starting to come into his own. And then Jared Goff went 18 for 18 in the game against the Seahawks a couple weeks ago. Mr. Perfect is what they're calling him on Pro Football Reference now. So apparently that nickname got around pretty quick. But I think it's going to be an interesting challenge for them. However, keep an eye on the Lions' offensive line. It looks like they're kind of dealing with a couple of injuries. If one or two of those guys are out in the interior, then maybe there's a little bit more confidence for that Cowboys defensive line. But I think the matchup for me is the Lions' offense versus the Cowboys' defense. If they can win that matchup, I think the offense handles the Lions' defense, and they can win this game.
So part of the Cowboys' offense that we saw last season in this game, in this matchup, absolutely kill it, was CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
CeeDee destroyed the Lions last season. On Sunday in Pittsburgh, he starts out very well. Then there's a miscommunication or something between Dak and CeeDee Lamb, and Dak ends up throwing a flat ball into the end zone that's intercepted. It was one of his 2 red zone turnovers, and we're not here to kill Dak because he obviously led them back, and he played actually really, really well, other than those 2 rather large turnovers that ended up did not bite him. Nick, we've seen CeeDee Lamb's sideline behavior become a point of discussion. One thing I learned, just because it's a point of discussion in the media, doesn't really mean it's a point of discussion in the locker room.
Yeah.
Usually, and what I learned was, it's things that you can't see that are points of discussion in a locker room. And those are usually personality rubs or frustrations with the coaching staff, or frustrations between the staff and the players. Anytime I ever hear, well, they're mad at the coaching staff. Well, you know what? Let me just tell you, the coaching staff's mad at the players. But in this particular case, this relationship between Dak and CeeDee, we see CeeDee come off the sideline. There's some pouting. What do you make of it?
I honestly don't think there's anything there. I think Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb have an established relationship, and it's kind of a big bro, low bro type situation. But I think there's also a lot of respect between those 2 guys. We asked Dak and CeeDee both about that clip that went viral over the weekend about CeeDee talking to Dak while he had his head down after that interception. It's everyone's been saying that he was saying jump ball forward, throw the jump ball, I got you. And that's exactly what was communicated from Dak and CeeDee today. I don't think there's anything to digest as far as or dissect rather the Dak and CD's relationship. I mean, these guys are locked up through 2029. They're going to be here a while. They're going to have to get together.
Oh, let's make a prediction. We kind of did. Detroit, we've been you started out like a ball of fire on this one.
Yeah.
Just Mr. Vegas, just printing money is what Nick Harris was doing. Unfortunately, you have come crashing to earth. Welcome to the club.
I should have stuck to my guns last week.
So now we've got Detroit favored by 3.
Yeah.
What do you like? It's got to be against the spread. Yep. What do you like?
I actually think Dallas wins the spread. Detroit wins the game. I think that's what happens there.
I think Detroit does both. I think they're going to win by like 4 or 5. And so I'm going to go with both. You're going to split the baby and go Cowboys win the spread. Detroit wins the game, which leads us to our last topic here on Cowboys Overtime, and that is the beauty of the classic SEC rivalry that is Texas-Oklahoma. It is Texas OU weekend in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl for one of the great games in college football that is now a part of SEC lore. Oklahoma comes in ranked 18th. It's a very shaky 18th, but they come in ranked 18th under Brent Venables. Meanwhile, Steve Sarkisian has unleashed the full power that is the monster money machine that is the University of Texas. UT comes in ranked number 1 in the nation with one of the more confusing, enviable quarterback situations ever created. They have a first-round projected pick starting in Quinn Ewers. He has not played the last few games because of an injury. His replacement is apparently already in the Hall of Fame. Arch Manning, who in his first college games has absolutely killed it. UT is a 14.5-point favorite.
Wow.
I can't believe that. I know. 14.5-point favorites to beat Oklahoma. If you are Steve Sarkisian and you are looking at a situation where you've got Quinn Ewers, very good player, potential first-round pick, and then Arch Manning, who has played very well, do you look at Quinn and say, sorry, you're Wally Pipp, I'm going with Arch? Or do you say, nope, you can't lose your job because of injury, you were playing well, go get him, son?
Yeah, I'm sticking with Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers, it sounds like he's going to be healthy for this game. I actually think the quarterback controversy on the other side is where the decision is being made poorly. I think Jackson Arnold should be starting for Oklahoma, in my opinion, but it's going to be the freshman Michael Hawkins Jr., and he's going to be without his top 5 wide receivers, Mac. It's going to be
5.
He might throw to me in section 121. So we'll
So I'm very curious. That interests me about. I don't think, if knowing what I know about this situation in Texas, Arch knew coming in, and he doesn't need the money.
Yeah,
and he's fine with it. So if he's fine with it, and the family's fine with it, you play Quinn.
Yeah.
What
absolutely.
I'm fascinated to see is if Quinn at all struggles, which he hasn't. He's been really good. If he struggles or gets hurt again, and that has been one thing about his resume at UT, he has struggled with injury. If he gets hurt again, if Sark says, I'm sorry, man, I got to go with this guy, that will be interesting to see play out. But your part, the 14.5 points, I can't really argue with it. Question is, Nick, does Bevo cover 14.5?
Oh, man. I've been saying all week that I feel like it's going to have the same vibes as the 49-0 beatdown a couple of years ago, but I don't think the score is going to reflect that. But I think they still cover that. I think it's going to be closer to like a 41-21 type situation.
I don't think Oklahoma is going to score at all. Now, I don't think they're going to get shut out, but what I mean is I don't think they're going to score at all. I think this is going to be ugly. I think I'm looking at 35-7, 35-10. I don't think Oklahoma can – yeah, I don't think Oklahoma can play with UT. I don't necessarily know if UT is going to win the national championship because that's a glorified tournament now, and that's just a coin toss. But this one, Oklahoma can't run and does not belong on the same field as that Texas team. All right, Nick. We tried to keep Candy's time short because her time is more valuable than yours and mine combined. Her words, not mine. For all of your Cowboys coverage needs, Be sure to check us out on startelegram.com. Cowboys host the Lions on Sunday at 3:30 p.m. We will be there, and hopefully next week we will give you the good news that the Cowboys have finally won a home game this season. See you next week.